Linda Ronstadt had a voice people didn't forget. It wasn't just powerful. It felt real. When she sang, it didn't sound like a performance. It sounded like she meant every word. For decades, she was everywhere. Rock, country, pop. She moved between styles without asking permission. One year she was topping charts. The next she was trying something completely different. People didn't always expect it, but they listened anyway. Then, slowly, something changed. At first, it didn't make sense. A missed note here, a strained performance there. For someone known for control, it felt off. But no one, not even her, understood what was really happening. The voice that built her life was starting to slip away. Years later, the truth came out. A diagnosis that explained everything, and took everything with it. This is the story of how a girl from a quiet town built one of the most recognizable voices in music. And how that same voice was taken from her. Linda Ronstadt was born on July 15, 1946, in Tucson. It wasn't a place people usually connected with future music legends. It was quiet, spread out, and far from the music industry. But inside her home, music was always there. Her family didn't treat music like something special or rare. It was just part of everyday life. Her father loved traditional Mexican songs. Her mother enjoyed American standards. There was always something playing, or someone singing. As a kid, Linda didn't stand out right away. She wasn't the loudest person in the room. She didn't push for attention. But when she sang, people noticed. It wasn't trained. It wasn't polished. But it had something honest in it. She grew up surrounded by different sounds. Mexican folk music, country, and early rock. That mix would later become a big part of her identity, even if she didn't realize it at the time. School didn't really hold her attention. Like a lot of artists, she felt pulled in a different direction. While others were thinking about normal careers, she was thinking about music. Not in a big, planned-out way. Just a feeling that this was what she wanted to do. At home, she started singing more seriously. Not for an audience, not for money, just because it felt natural. By her teenage years, something had shifted. Music wasn't just something she liked anymore. It was something she needed to follow. That meant leaving. Leaving home in those days wasn't simple. Especially not for a young woman chasing something uncertain. There were no guarantees, no clear path. Just a belief that maybe something could happen. So she made a decision that would change everything. She packed up and headed west. When Linda Ronstadt arrived in Los Angeles, it wasn't glamorous. There were no big welcomes. No instant success. Just a crowded city full of people trying to do the exact same thing. Make it in music. She didn't have connections. No powerful manager. No shortcut. What she did have was her voice. In the beginning, it was about survival. Small gigs, low pay, and a lot of uncertainty. She teamed up with a group that would become known as Stone Poneys. They weren't famous at first. Just another band trying to get noticed. They played wherever they could. Clubs, small venues, anywhere that would let them perform. It wasn't easy. Money was tight. There were times when it probably felt like nothing was moving forward. But slowly, things started to shift. Then came a song that changed everything, Different Drum. It wasn't a massive explosion overnight, but it got attention. People started to hear her voice in a new way. There was something different about it. Clear, emotional, and strong without trying too hard. Even then, though, success wasn't instant or stable. The band had limits, and Linda could feel it. She wasn't someone who wanted to stay stuck. Even early on, she had a sense that she needed to keep moving, keep growing. Staying in one place, doing the same thing, didn't feel right. So she made another decision. She stepped away from the band. Going solo wasn't a safe choice. It meant starting over in a lot of ways. No group to fall back on. No shared responsibility. Just her. It was a risk. The kind of risk that could end a career before it really began. But for Linda, staying comfortable was never the goal. She wanted more, even if it meant facing everything alone. When Linda Ronstadt stepped out on her own, nothing about it felt guaranteed. Going solo sounded bold, but in reality, it meant starting from scratch again. No band name to lean on, No shared spotlight. Just her voice, and whether people would care enough to listen. At first, the results were mixed. Her early solo albums didn't explode right away. They showed promise, but they didn't turn her into a star overnight. The industry noticed her, but not in a way that changed everything. She kept recording, kept performing, and kept pushing forward, even when things felt uncertain. There was pressure building behind the scenes. Record labels wanted hits. They wanted something clear and marketable. But Linda wasn't easy to define. She didn't fit cleanly into one category. She could sing rock, but she also leaned toward country. She could handle soft ballads, but she also had the power for something louder. That flexibility confused people at first, but it also became her advantage. By the early 1970s, things started to shift. She began working with stronger material, better production, and musicians who understood how to support her voice instead of shaping it into something artificial. The sound got tighter. The performances got sharper. Then came the moment where everything clicked. Songs like You're No Good, When Will I Be Loved, and It's So Easy didn't just get played, they stuck. Her voice carried emotion in a way that felt direct. No extra decoration, no unnecessary drama, just clarity and strength. Audiences connected to that. Suddenly, she wasn't just another singer trying to make it. She was one of the biggest names in music. Albums started selling in huge numbers. Tours filled up. Her name started appearing at the top of charts instead of somewhere in the middle. But even at the peak, her success didn't follow a simple pattern. She didn't stay in one sound long enough to become predictable. One record might lean toward rock, the next toward country, and then something softer. Instead of locking herself into a formula, she kept moving. That made her harder to market, but more interesting to listen to. By the mid-1970s, she had become one of the most successful female artists in the world. Not because she followed trends, but because she didn't. Her voice became her identity. People recognized it immediately, no matter what kind of song she was singing. At the same time, fame came with its own weight. The more successful she became, the more people expected from her. Bigger tours, more hits, constant visibility. There was no real pause, no moment where things slowed down long enough to fully process what was happening. She kept working. From the outside, it looked like a perfect rise. But behind it, there was a constant push to keep up, to stay relevant, to keep delivering. And she did. Not by becoming something new, but by staying exactly who she was. By the time Linda Ronstadt reached the top, there was no quiet space left in her life. Touring became constant. Cities blurred together. Nights on stage, days traveling, and very little time in between. It wasn't just about singing anymore. It was about maintaining a position that didn't allow much room for rest. The expectations kept growing. Each new album had to match or beat the last one. Each performance had to prove why she belonged at the top. There wasn't much tolerance for slowing down or experimenting too far outside what people expected. But that was never how she worked. Instead of staying inside a single lane, she kept shifting. Rock to country, country to pop, soft ballads to louder, more aggressive tracks. She didn't treat genres as boundaries. To her, they were just different ways to use her voice. That approach made her stand out, but it also came with risk. Fans didn't always follow immediately when she changed direction. Critics sometimes questioned her choices. But over time, those same choices became part of what defined her career. She also began working with other major artists, including Dolly Parton and Emmylou Harris. Together, they created something that felt natural rather than forced. Their voices blended in a way that didn't compete. It complemented. These collaborations showed a different side of her. Less about being the center of attention, more about being part of something shared. Off stage, though, she stayed private. Unlike many artists at her level, she didn't build her image around constant publicity. There were no dramatic headlines or carefully controlled narratives. She kept her personal life mostly out of the spotlight. That choice made her harder to define outside of her music. At the same time, the physical demands of her career didn't ease up. Singing at that level, night after night, required control and endurance. Her voice was strong, but it wasn't invincible. There were moments where the pressure showed. Fatigue, stress, And the constant cycle of performing started to take a toll. Not in a way that stopped her, but enough to remind her that nothing about this pace was sustainable forever. Still, she kept going. Because at that point, stopping wasn't really an option. She had built something too big to just walk away from. The audience expected her. The industry relied on her. And her own identity was tied closely to what she did on stage. But underneath all of it, there was a pattern forming. She didn't just want to succeed. She wanted to explore. And that desire, to keep changing, even at the height of fame, would lead her into decisions that surprised almost everyone watching. At the height of her success, most artists would have stayed exactly where they were. The formula was working. The albums were selling. The tours were packed. There was no real reason to change anything. But Linda Ronstadt didn't think that way. Instead of protecting her position, she started moving away from it. One of the first major surprises came when she stepped into musical theater. She took on a lead role in The Pirates of Penzance. For a rock and pop singer at her level, this wasn't a typical move. It wasn't safe. It wasn't expected. And it wasn't easy. Musical theater demanded a different kind of discipline. Timing, projection, acting. It required control in ways that recording in a studio didn't. She had to adapt quickly, and she did. Night after night, she performed on stage in a completely different environment than the one that made her famous. Some people didn't understand it. Why step away from a successful music career to do something like this? Why risk confusing your audience? But for her, it wasn't about protecting an image. It was about doing something that felt real in the moment. And she didn't stop there. She went even further when she decided to record traditional Mexican music. These were songs connected to her heritage. Music she grew up hearing at home in Tucson. This wasn't a commercial move. It wasn't aimed at mainstream charts. It was personal. The album didn't sound like anything else on the radio at the time. It stood apart from the trends she had helped define. And once again, people were surprised. Some fans followed her without hesitation. Others didn't know what to do with it. Critics had mixed reactions at first, but over time, the work gained respect for its authenticity. She wasn't chasing hits anymore. She was following instinct. That pattern, doing what felt right instead of what made sense on paper, became a defining part of her career. It also meant that her path would never be predictable. Even at the top, she kept taking chances. Because staying the same felt more risky to her than changing. For most of her life, Linda Ronstadt never had to think about her voice in a technical way. It was just there. Reliable. Strong. Consistent. But then, something started to feel off. First, it was small. Notes that didn't come out the way they used to. Moments where control slipped just enough to notice. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't something anyone could point to and say, "This is the problem." But she felt it. Singers know their voices in a way that's hard to explain. Even a slight change stands out immediately. And for her, those small changes started to happen more often. She tried to push through it. Like most performers, she kept going, adjusting where she could, working around what didn't feel right. There were still shows to do, recordings to finish, expectations to meet. But the issue didn't go away. It grew. What used to feel effortless began to require focus. Songs she had sung for years suddenly felt unfamiliar. The control that once defined her performances started to slip in ways she couldn't fully explain. That confusion made it worse. There wasn't a clear answer. No immediate diagnosis. Just a growing sense that something fundamental was changing. Eventually, it reached a point where performing live became difficult. Not impossible at first, but unpredictable. And unpredictability is something a professional singer can't afford. When people come to a show, they expect consistency. They expect the voice they know. She couldn't guarantee that anymore. So she started stepping back. Less touring. Fewer performances. A gradual withdrawal that wasn't officially announced but could be felt. From the outside, it looked like she was slowing down by choice. But that wasn't the truth. Inside, there was frustration, confusion, and a quiet fear that something bigger was happening. The voice that had carried her entire life was no longer fully under her control. And she still didn't know why. For years, Linda Ronstadt searched for an explanation. Doctors ran tests. Different possibilities were considered. At one point, she was told she had Parkinson's disease. It seemed like an answer, but it didn't fully explain everything she was experiencing. Her symptoms didn't fit perfectly. The loss of her voice, in particular, didn't match what most people expected from that diagnosis. Something about it felt incomplete. Later, the truth became clearer. Her condition was linked to a rare neurological disorder called progressive supranuclear palsy. It affects movement, balance, and coordination. And in her case, it affected the ability to sing. By the time this was understood, the damage was already done. Her voice was gone. Not in a temporary way. Not something that could be fixed with rest or treatment. It was a permanent loss. For someone whose identity was built around singing, this wasn't just a career change. It was something deeper. She spoke openly about it, but without exaggeration. No dramatic language. No attempt to turn it into something bigger than it already was. Just the facts. She couldn't sing anymore, and there was no way back. When the public heard the full story, the reaction was immediate. Fans who had followed her for decades finally understood why she had disappeared from the stage. What looked like a quiet retirement was actually something forced. There was no choice involved. She didn't walk away because she wanted to. She walked away because she had to. That realization changed how people saw her goodbye. It wasn't a planned ending. It wasn't a final tour or a carefully timed farewell. It was sudden, even if it took years to fully understand. And for her, it meant facing a life without the one thing that had always been there. Her voice. By the time Linda Ronstadt understood what was really happening to her body, the decision had already been made for her. There would be no return to the stage. At first, her absence wasn't clearly explained. She simply stopped performing. No big farewell tour. No dramatic announcement. Just a quiet step back that left people wondering. Fans kept asking the same question. When is she coming back? But behind the scenes, she already knew the answer. Singing wasn't just difficult anymore. It was impossible. The control, the strength, the precision that defined her voice were gone. And for someone who built her entire life around that ability, there was no version of performing that felt honest without it. She wasn't interested in pretending. There's a difference between adapting and forcing something that no longer works. For her, going on stage without the voice people remembered didn't make sense. It wouldn't feel real. And she had spent her entire career being real. So instead of trying to hold on to something that was slipping away, she let it go. That decision wasn't easy. Walking away from a career at that level means letting go of more than just work. It means losing routine, identity, and connection with an audience that had been part of her life for decades. The stage wasn't just a place, it was part of who she was. And now it was gone. Daily life changed in ways that people outside couldn't fully see. Without touring, without recording, without rehearsals, everything slowed down. But the illness didn't slow down with it. Simple movements became harder. Balance became less reliable. Even speaking could take more effort than before. The loss wasn't limited to singing. It was spreading into other parts of her life. Still, she didn't present it as a dramatic struggle. She spoke about it directly, without trying to soften or exaggerate it. Just clear, simple honesty. She couldn't sing anymore, and that part of her life was over. There's a kind of finality in that statement. No comeback. No, maybe someday. Just a line that had been crossed. For fans, it was difficult to accept. Many had grown up listening to her. Her voice was tied to memories, moments, and emotions that didn't fade easily. Letting go of that voice felt personal, even for people who had never met her. But for her, holding on to false hope wasn't useful. She had already moved into a different chapter, one that didn't include the stage. And she accepted it in the only way she knew how. Quietly, honestly, without turning it into something it wasn't. After stepping away from music, Linda Ronstadt didn't disappear completely. She knew there were people who had followed her for years, people who deserved some kind of explanation, or at least a goodbye that felt real. So she shared her thoughts in interviews and recorded messages. Not in a scripted, dramatic way. Just simple words, spoken the way she had always communicated. She talked about her voice first. Not in a nostalgic way, but in a factual one. She explained that it was gone, that she could still hear music in her head, still remember how songs felt, but physically, she couldn't produce those sounds anymore. That separation, between memory and reality, was something she described clearly. Music didn't leave her, but her ability to express it did. She also spoke about identity. For most of her life, she had been known as a singer. That label followed her everywhere. And suddenly, it no longer applied in the same way. Adjusting to that wasn't simple. It meant redefining how she saw herself without the one thing that had always been constant. There was no attempt to turn it into a motivational story. She didn't say everything worked out for the best. She didn't pretend it was easy. She just acknowledged the loss and moved forward as best as she could. At the same time, she made sure to thank her audience. The people who came to her shows, bought her records, and stayed with her through all the changes in her career. She didn't treat that support lightly. It mattered to her, even after she could no longer perform. Her message wasn't long, but it didn't need to be. It was clear. She was grateful. She remembered. And even though she couldn't sing anymore, she hadn't forgotten what it felt like to share music with people. There was something grounded about the way she said goodbye. No dramatic ending. No attempt to control how people would remember her. Just honesty. For many fans, that made it harder, but also more real. Because it wasn't a planned farewell. It was simply the truth. Even without her voice, Linda Ronstadt didn't disappear from music. Her recordings remained. Songs that had been played for decades didn't lose their impact just because she could no longer perform them live. If anything, they carried more weight now, knowing what had been lost. Her influence stayed visible. Artists across different genres continued to point back to her work, not just because of her success, but because of how she approached music. She didn't follow one path. She moved between styles, took risks, and trusted her instincts even when it didn't make sense commercially. That kind of approach left a mark. Her collaborations with voices like Dolly Parton and Emmylou Harris still stand as examples of how artists can work together without losing their individuality. Her solo work showed that a voice could carry emotion without needing to overcomplicate it. She also received recognition for what she had done. Awards, honors, and acknowledgments came over the years, but they weren't the main focus of her story. What mattered more was how people continued to listen. Her music didn't feel tied to a specific time. It still connected. The real reason behind her goodbye became clear over time. It wasn't about stepping away on her own terms. It wasn't about choosing a different path after success. It was about loss. A physical, irreversible loss that took away the one thing she had always relied on. There was no workaround, no alternative version of her career that could replace it. And yet, what she left behind didn't disappear with it. Her voice, recorded across decades, stayed exactly where it had always been, available, recognizable, unchanged. That's where her legacy lives. Not in the idea of what could have been, or what might have continued, but in what already exists. The songs, the recordings, the moments people still go back to. She may have said goodbye to singing, but the sound of her voice didn't leave with her. It stayed. Linda Ronstadt is gone from the stage, but her voice is still out there. Still playing. Still reaching people. That part never stopped. Now we want to hear from you. What do you think about her life and everything she went through? Let us know in the comments. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. And if you want more real stories like this, hit subscribe and stay with us. We break down the lives behind the fame, the parts most people don't talk about. See you in the next one.